Then the second one is by classifying the reasons for assessing such behaviors. And this is very, very important. To continue on that one, we will have to take note that the behaviors assessed in sociolinguistic surveys include the distinction between language behavior and the behavior towards language. That is, language behaviors assessed by sociolinguistic surveys can be classified into three major categories. And these three major categories include: 1. Proficiency. On proficiency, it refers to what has been learned. In this case, what has been learned is actually reflecting on proficiency. And the second one is acquisition. Acquisition refers to the sequence of learning. By sequence of learning, you consider what has been learned first, and then you proceed what is building on what has been learned first. That is about acquisition, and it follows the trend of learning things. Then the last one, that's the third one, is usage. Usage refers to what is typically done, and this includes the circumstances in which language is used. This is very, very important for us to understand. Now, let's come to this phenomenon, the micro-sociolinguistic level of surveys. At the micro-sociolinguistic level of observation or surveys, we are concerned with a particular feature or particular features of language. For example, with respect to the variants of a phonological or lexical or syntactic variable, among others. Thus, a survey can describe which variants different from groups of speakers can use. That is, how different groups of speakers can use the same variable, and how are they going to differ. And this is about proficiency, and which they learned first, and what is it that they learned first, and that is about acquisition. And then the context in which they use them, and this is about usage. At the macro-sociolinguistic level of observation, surveys describe what language or language varieties different groups of speakers know, and that is about proficiency. And then the order in which they learned them, that is about acquisition. And the context in which they use them, that is about usage. Behavior towards language with respect to language use can be classified as either attitudinal or implementational. That is, if you consider behavior towards language, it can be classified as either attitudinal, it's a question of attitude, how you look at it, or it's a question of implementational, it's about implementation, how does the implementation occur. Further than that, what we have to consider is attitude here. Language is an attitudinal object concerning which people have opinions and feelings, and towards which they may be prepared to act. While attitudes are unobservable constructs whose characteristics must be inferred on the basis of observable behavior. Implementational behavior is itself observable. That is, you may not be very sure that some groups of people have this attitude towards that language, because the attitude is embedded in the person. So the attitude can either be positive or it could be negative. It depends. Unless they react, then you may know and appreciate their attitudes. But at implementation level, that's where now they can participate. They need to come out very clear that their attitude is this, either positive or negative, because that is at implementational level. As such, implementational behavior is itself observable. That is to say, people act overtly towards language. For example, they may voluntarily enroll their children in schools in which the language of instruction differs from that used in the majority of the community's schools. That is, they will have a choice. If several languages are offered in an institution, they are going to direct their children to a certain language at the neglect of the other languages. And why they would neglect the other languages or the other language is an issue of attitude. It means they are not positive with it. The other one is they may struggle to maintain or to change the status of their mother tongue by participating in organizations devoted to such purposes or by lobbying or petitioning legislators. That is, the people will have the mandate to devote their efforts, their activities to what they favor at the expense of the other things, of the other languages. They may even lobby for learning a certain language or for introducing a certain language in the curriculum at the expense of other languages. And this, if you see it very carefully, it's not just a mere choice. It reflects the attitudes. Sometimes they will even question the authorities and petition the legislators so that they can act differently in terms of language choice. The other point is they may correct another speaker's use of forms which they consider to be non-standard or improper. This is done at interaction level. If somebody uses the language wrongly, those who are concerned with that language will feel hurt because that would be a misrepresentation of the language itself. As such, some might delve into correcting such kind of errors to say, no, we don't speak like that, but we say this. That is a reaction that must also follow. The other point is they may work in language planning agencies or participate in activities sponsored by such agencies. Now, when there are organizations or bodies that work with with specific languages, take for example, trying to disseminate the language, they will be very happy to join such organizations and work with it, because the organization is focusing on building the language and expanding it. So they have the support for that. So they will participate. That's what is done. Then they may also be actively involved in language policy decisions.